9. Bring down everything else. So for y, I'm going to use parentheses, put in -2.
Yeah, that's what confused me. Because I wasn't sure if the exponent was with the 2 only, or if it was also with the 5.
With the 2 only. If it was with both, it would look something like. It would look something like that. Okay. So exponent 9 minus 5. This will give us a positive 4. If you put -2 and then just square it without parentheses, you'll get a -4 instead of a positive. But think it's -2 times -2. So you should get a positive. And then multiply. So -11 should have been your answer for that one. Any others we want to check? Had questions about anything like that?
How about 4? Because I got a decimal number.
Okay. I don't think that's supposed to be a decimal. So for this one, we need to distribute. Be careful with your signs. So -4b. Okay, so I said be careful with your signs when you're multiplying, because this should be a positive. And then this would also be a positive. If you did not get that, that would be why. I'm going to switch the lights. I can't have both of them on, they hurt my eyes. Then combine like terms, do what's on the same side. So -4 plus 21, 7. And then get b by itself. Move 14 by subtracting.
Wow. I see where I am.
Got it. And then divide both sides by 17. 4, I believe, was the answer.
Yeah. I forgot to bring down the 14.
That would do it. Okay. Other questions on this? Yeah. So use your order of operations to figure all those things out, and then at the end end up with one number.
Okay, so then we do the differential first.
Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, everything is a like term. So you would go ahead and do your exponents next. And then anything that's multiplying or dividing, depending on which one comes first, reading left and right. We only have one. And then add or subtract, moving left or right. -8 should have been your final answer for that one. Other questions on the shark rate? So between the quick text and the other things where we do things up here, you'll be given these, so it'll just be random practice of either algebra or things we've done in this class that you should have seen before, but if not, that's okay as well. Before we get into what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about a couple things. Julia, did you have a question? Yes, so I'll do that, and then we'll talk about it. So there are two different ways you could go about doing this. One, get rid of the fraction. One, keep the fraction. So it depends on which way you wanted to do this. If I kept the fraction, I would need to get rid of the 8 first by subtracting. And then from there, get rid of the -4 by multiplying on both ends. positive 12. Another way you could have one about doing this is, and you don't have to write this way down, but you can use your choose. Is if we wanted to get rid of the negative 4 or the fraction in general, we'd have to multiply everything by negative 4. So I would be distributing this negative 4 to the numerator only, and then this, so negative 4x over negative 4 minus 32, and then equals negative 20. Then I can simplify the negative 4s, so we cancel, leaving us with x, and then add 32 to both sides. You would get the same answer either way, it's just how you choose to see it. So a couple things. Wednesday is going to be your flex day in this class. That does not mean we're on phones and sleeping because we don't have anything to do, no. So it's going to go like this. If you need to make up a test, you'll have that time in class. If you need to do, like you have not done at all, a Khan Academy, you'll be working on that for a short amount of time before I give you something else to do. Those of you that said you wanted to retake, you could be working on that retake process if that takes the entire time, so we'll only do that for 60 minutes. If that takes that entire time, you can be working on that. If it doesn't, then I'll give you something else. I'll explain how that process is going to look here in a second. And then for everyone else who is not retaking, not missing assignments or anything like that, you'll have different activities that you can be working on. If you scored like an A on whatever, I have some more challenging exercises that you could do. If you scored like a B or a C, you understand it, but maybe you made a lot of minor mistakes that led to bigger mistakes. I have some more practice things that can be fun, but it's just a lot of practice. And then if you got a really low score but are not retaking, I have additional practice for you as well. So we'll be doing all of those things. I'll explain that more in depth on Wednesday so I can actually see how that's going to look. But for retake stuff, you have to do the following. Test corrections on a separate sheet of paper. So you writing everything you did wrong and fixing it. Making sure whatever objective you want to retake or objectives you're retaking, the Khan Academy for that or those objectives are done. So for 1.1, that would be the 2 that were due September 2nd. For 1.2, that would be the one that was due Friday. If you're retaking both sections, you would have to make sure all 3 Khan Academy quizzes are done. And then if you scored below SC, you'll have additional practice to go along with that. Once all of that is done, you'll take pictures of certain things, upload it in Canvas, and I'll show you where that goes once we get there. And if you finish all of that, let's say you finish all that in class Wednesday, you probably won't be retaking in class Wednesday, but if you like stay after school or come see me another morning or wait until the next flex day, which happens to be a little bit from now. Because our flex days are going to be Wednesdays every time we meet on Wednesday. It doesn't happen again for a little bit. Or the next time it happens, we're not far into something like that. So it won't happen again for a while. When you get your calendar, you'll see it. Okay. There's information on all of that on Canvas. So retake stuff, flex day stuff, all that stuff's on Canvas. If you need help finding that, they each have their own separate modules. But do we have any questions about any of that? In general, specifically, Precious?
So only on Wednesdays?
Yeah, so only on Wednesdays. Anytime we meet on a Wednesday. And then it's only for 60 minutes, so we'll do something for the first 30, and then the last 60 will be the flex. Any other questions? Okay. The other thing is not really related to anything. I just wanted to try something to, you guys do a good job of participating, engaging. I feel like overall, out of my 3 after classes, you guys do that the most. So thank you for that. But to encourage you even more, I'm going to start doing this ticket thing where if you participate, you engage, you answer questions, you're helping each other, and I see that. I'm going to give you one of these. You're going to put your name on the back, and then I'm going to take it back. And every time we meet on a Friday, I'll draw names. Whoever I pick wins candy or the snack that they're choosing. So there's that. So those of you that asked about these, Julia, Franco, Sloan, I think those were those 3. You guys can write your name on the back of this, and then I'll take it back. And then, maybe not today, I may not give you one for every time you answer, but maybe every couple times or something like that. As we move forward, I'll try to give you more of them so you have more of a chance, things like that. Questions on that? No. So this first part has a bunch of vocab. I'm going to pull this down so you can write this down. Can you see from there, Nicole? Yes. And as you're writing, I'm just going to read these off. So a rate of change is a ratio that shows how one variable changes with respect to another. On a linear graph, this is called the slope of the line. So those words are interchangeable. Rate of change, slope, they mean the same thing. Slope is written as a ratio of the vertical change, your rise, to the horizontal change, your run, between any 2 points on a line. This remains constant for any 2 points on the same line. So between point A and point C, whatever the slope is going to be the same for point B to C, C to D, and so on and so forth. Slope is written as a fraction in simplest form, so always simplify no matter what. And then the variable for slope is m. Anyone know the different types of slope? You can name just one if you know any of them. Say that again. I didn't hear what you said.
I don't know if it's right.
What did you say? It's okay if it's wrong. Linear is the line, but not the type of slope. Say that again.
X and Y or something?
Those are things found on the line, but not the type of slope. Positive. Positive is 1. Negative 0, undefined. That is negative 1, but thank you. Negative, positive, 0, undefined are all of the different types of slope. So in this next part, write positive, negative, 0, undefined, and write or draw these axes. The axes doesn't matter. They should be all drawn the same. Some of my lines are shorter than others, but what'd you say? Whatever I decide to buy at the end of the week for your price. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's probably too expensive.
I'll say no, because I wouldn't be paying for it. The school would be paying for it. But I don't know if the person in charge of that knows how to do that, because they're new to the school. So, that. Okay, so I'm going to draw what these will look like, and then talk about different, how you could see these are different. So positive, think you're walking upstairs, walking up a hill, something like that. So it's going to look something like this. Negative would be the opposite, where you're walking down the stairs, downhill, mountain, whatever you sort of choose to walk down. 0 is me walking across this floor. If you driving along a flat road, skateboarding, skating, whatever. You do flat surface, straight, on a straight path. Undefined is, it is going to go straight up and down. So you can think about an elevator, bungee jumping, skydiving.
Are they like anywhere on a graph, or are they like on the line?
They can be anywhere.
Okay. First of all, first year was
All right. To see the different types, you can think about different directions. For positive, if I'm reading this left to right, I always do my Y's first, so I'm going up, and then I'm going right. Think about these numbers or these directions as on an axis. Anything up is positive, anything right is positive. So like in this quadrants, these would all be positive Y values. These would all be positive X values. So up and right gives us a positive answer. But we could also think the opposite. So let's say I'm up here or I'm looking at this right to left. Then I'd be going down and left. Down would be a negative. Left would be a negative. And if I have a negative divided by a negative, I get
Positive.
positive. So either way you look at this, it's still positive. Yes. Did you have a question? No. Okay. For negative, then it's opposite. So if I'm reading this left to right, I'm going down and I'm going to the right. That down is my negative, but the right is positive. If I only have one thing that is negative, the entire fraction is negative. But if I have two negative things, it's positive. So 1 negative, 2 positive. So be careful with that. Then again, opposite is also true. If I'm looking at this right to left, I'm going up and to the left. Again, we have 1 negative, so the entire thing is negative. It'll make more sense when we start putting numbers to it. For the 0, we're not going up and down at all. So we can say that's some 0. And then we are moving left and right. But 0 divided by anything is what? 0. So that's always going to be 0, no matter what. Undefined is the opposite, though. Here we are moving up and down, but not left and right. Pick your favorite number in the world and divide it by 0 in your calculator, where 0 is in the denominator. It does say error. In this class, we cannot divide by 0. I say that because in calculus, you can divide by 0 and you get weird things. Not here. So anytime you divide by 0, you get error. That is undefined. All right, so we are going to actually use those and help us find the slope from a graph. You will need to know that your m is your rise over your run, or y over x, always. Some of these graphs will be easier than others because the points you may be able to easily see. Sometimes that's not the case. So when that's not the case, look for where does this line cross the grid lines exactly. So like it makes a perfect T or it crosses exactly at that point. number 1, or for number 1, there are only 2 that do that. Right here and right here. They are crossing the line and the grid lines exactly at those points. So then we're just counting our slope. Rise first. Think about when you get out of bed in the morning, you usually sit up before getting out. Unless you're one of those people who roll out, then that's a different story. So I'm going to count how many units I go up from this point straight up. And 7 is right. And then we're moving to the right 4, yes. So if we have a positive, I gotta stop doing that. If we have a up and a right, that would give us a positive. Make sure somewhere on there you say m equals or equals m, so you know this is my slope. Sometimes you may look at this and not look at it left to right, but be thinking right to left, which is fine. But instead of doing what we just did, you would go down 7 and to the left 4. Which would give you a -7 over a -4, which would still give you a +7. So no matter which direction you go, you should still get the same answer. Questions on that first one? All right, let's do the next one. Points that are given are these 2. But if you didn't see those and maybe you were just looking at the line and you saw this one or this one, you could use any of those 2 points. Does not matter which 2. So whether you use these, some combination of any of those, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer no matter what, as long as you count correctly. So let's say I was doing this just to the small ones. So I'd be going down 1 to the right 3. What would my slope be there? If I go down 1 to the right 3. Precious. What would your slope be? Not 3. Because we're dividing, it wouldn't be 3 if we're dividing by 3. Eva, what were you going to say? Okay, what was your answer going to be? If we have a negative, 1 negative symbol and 1 positive, is that a positive? It is a negative. Casper, what were you going to say? It's negative 1/3.
I'm confused. I thought we have to go from the point to the other point.
Yes, so I happen to see that these 2 also fell on this line. So I started from there. I'm going to show you how the pink ones would also work here in a second. But the points you choose, it doesn't matter, as long as they fall exactly on the grid line. So let's say I started at these 2, or used these 2, but I went backwards. Then I'm going up 3, and to the left 9. Wow. Awesome. That was not accurate. Anyway. If I was going up 3 and to the left 9, I would get a negative 3/9. Put your negative, even though left is negative, put it in the numerator or outside of it. This would simplify to still be negative 1/3. So always simplify your answers. This means every time I go down 1 and to the right 3, I should end up at another point. And it shows that. So if I go down 1, right 3, down 1, right 3, and if I did it again, I'd end up with something off the graph, but as the line continues to go, it should still work. Okay. Other questions on that one? To help you with 3 and 4, I want you all to write this down somewhere on your paper. Anytime you see a horizontal or vertical line, you should be thinking for ducks. Yes.
What is the word after O?
It's a Y. Yeah, it's a Y. I don't know if that was better or worse. Okay. So this stands for horizontal lines have a 0 slope and are usually y equals. And then the opposite is true. Vertical lines have undefined slope and are usually x equals. So if you remember this, anytime you see a horizontal or vertical line, you should be good. Because if I see that this is a horizontal line, what is my slope?
Y equals
That will be the type of equation it is, but it's going to be 0 slope. So if I see horizontal, I should immediately be thinking, wait, that's 0 slope. Now, could you still do the actual math part? Sure. We know we're not moving up or down, so that would be some 0 over, whether you're moving left or right, does not matter. There are points here, but you could use any point since it's a horizontal line. Let's say I said this was 4, doesn't matter because I'm doing 0 divided by whatever, so I'm always going to get 0 no matter what. And then same thing for this one, if I said it was a vertical line, my slope would be
0. I mean, undefined.
undefined. And that's something you could just write automatically. I see a vertical line, koi bucks, the view tells me it's undefined. But then again, you could also do the math part. So I see points on here, but it's a vertical line, pick any 2, does not matter. I'm moving down 5, but I'm not moving left and right. And anytime you divide by a 0, you get error. Right, so these have points on them. Sometimes you'll get graphs that don't. So to help you practice that. On the last page, you have practice problems. There are also 2 on the back of that page. Find which ones you want to go over, have questions about, and we'll go over those. Mm-hmm.
So like, see that for the first one, so we could have more than one slope and look at it.
No,
There was like
there's only one right answer for the slope. You want to do number 1? I mean, do you want us to do number 1? Yes. Any others? Fine. The hardest part about these is finding the points. After you find the points, finding the slope is easy. Or should be easy, I should say. So we'll do 1 and 5, and then any others, if you see those or have questions about. So starting with 1, you have to find points on this blue line, or my blue line, yours isn't blue, that cross the background grid lines exactly. What's nice about number 1 is that there are a bunch. So any of these points you could use. And then pick any 2 points you want, start there, count your slope. So let's say I chose these 2 points just because I'd be going down 1 and to the right 1. What would my slope be? You're close. The down would make this a negative. So it would be negative. Questions about that one? Number 5. Find 2 points on this. Tell it to me and as an ordered pair. Remember, as in ordered pairs is x, y. So find 2 points and tell me what those 2 points are that fall on the grid lines exactly. Anyone see any for 5? Eva? -3. Right here. -3, -2. -2, -2. You're getting closer.
I'm getting closer.
There you go. -2, -3. Susie. That's okay. Which one did you have? -3, 0. That works. There is another one. So if you saw this other one at -4, 3, that would also work. Okay, so there are different points. You just have to find 2 of them. And then find your slope. So as long as you find 2 points, every line will have at least 2. Could have more than that. They'll never have less than that because you need at least 2 points to find a line. So if I'm starting at does not matter, I'm going down 3 and to the right 1. What is my slope? -3. Because this would give me -3 over 1, but simplify. Did we have any other graphing questions we want to go over? If not, let's go back to this page. On this page, cross out numbers 7 through 10, because that's not for you. You will need to know this formula, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Me, I'm a visual person, so anytime I see all these variables and stuff, I have to write them out. So for 1, each of these is an ordered pair xy. So I would write these as x1, y1, x2, y2. And I would just write that up here. Now, once you figure out your rhythm and you're good and you don't need to keep writing that, that's fine. If you would rather keep writing it so you don't confuse it, that's also fine. Once you've labeled them, you're just going to put these into this format. So y2 is 3. We are always subtracting no matter what. y1 is 1. x2 is 4. We're always subtracting, and then x1 is 1. And then we would simplify. So 3 minus 1 gives us 2. 4 minus 1 gives us 3. So that would be our slope because we can't simplify it any further. One thing I do want to mention before we do a couple more is, let's say you forget the order and you switch the y1 and y2. That's fine to do as long as you also switch x1 and x2. So if you switch one, you have to switch both. Otherwise, you end up with a negative when you should have had a positive, or vice versa. Be careful with that. What we cannot do, though, is switch the x and y's. Has to be y on top. Great. Let's try number 2. Same thing, label. And then subtract. So y2 is negative 2. We're subtracting 4. And then in our x's, we have 10 minus a negative 2. So always put your negative and your negative and your minus. Then you can change it to a plus. But if you start changing it to a plus immediately, you may change all of it to a plus by accident, and it should be subtracting. So if you want to add this afterwards, you can, or just put that in your calculator, you can. So negative 2 minus 4 would give us negative 6. 12 minus a negative 2 is the same thing as 12 plus 2. And again, double check your math, use your calculator. Can this be simplified?
Yeah.
Yes, to what?
1/2.
Negative 1.
To the first.
It's not nice. All right. Do we have any questions so far? I want to talk about something you may see that happens. Now, if you forget this, it's okay because you always have the formula. You can go back and do the math. Anytime you see that either the x's or the y's are the same, something's going to cancel. You're going to end up with 0. So this is going to be either m equals 0 or m equals undefined. For this one, if I were to label these, my y's are the same. I'm subtracting my 9's over 3 minus 5. So my y's cancel. This would simplify to be 0. So anytime my y's are the same, my slope is 0. Yes. Yes.
On the test for like the negative list, will we be allowed to use decimals for this test?
You'll have the calculator that's so then if the y's are the same and you get m equals, the opposite would be true here. Our x's are the same, so this is going to be undefined. So if you start to see patterns like that, you don't have to do the math. You could say, I see that these values are the same. This is going to be m equals 0 or m equals undefined. There are 2 questions here, 3 and 4, or on the back of the page we were just on. There are questions 11 through 20. Would we like to go over any of those? So 3 and 4 on that same page, or 11 through 20 on this, any of those? I'm going to ask you 2 questions. 1, how do you feel about finding slope from a graph? Good, okay, not good? Okay. And then finding slope from 2 points? Good, okay, not good. So, I haven't heard any questions, so we're going to move on to the next piece. Precious, did you have a question?
So I was trying to do numbers on the gender also, but like, because in decimals, whatever I used to do, the one perfect for possible.
Sorry,
I
you're
keep getting
saying
negative 4.
this one, this number. You keep getting what?
Negative 4, but I thought it was supposed to be negative positive.
Let's see. So negative 5 minus 5 over negative 8 minus negative 4.
Yeah.
This would give us negative 10. This would become adding. Negative 8 plus 4 would give us negative 4. It's going to be a fraction. Does anyone know what the slope-intercept form is?
Y equals mx plus b.
Yes. Y equals mx plus b, where m we know is the slope. Do we know what b is? Intercept, the y intercept. Okay, so the point of this is just being able to see if you're given slope and y-intercept, do you know which one is which? And how to put it into the format. So like for number 1 here, they give you slope and y-intercept, so you would have to put it in this format. Y equals, the y and the x always stay the same. You're just putting in m and b. So y equals 2x minus 1. So you may get something like that, or vice versa. You may be given the equation and asked, what is the slope of this line? And you would tell me, what is the slope? 2. Right. So either way, you need to either be able to put it in the equation or look at the equation and say, this is the slope, this is the y-intercept. Are there any other examples, 2 through 6, that we want to see or go over or have questions about? Number 2. So if we are writing this out, y equals, how would we start to write this? We're so close. We're missing one thing. X. Any other questions in this section? Aubrey?
If you're doing like the y-intercept negative, you don't add it all, right? You just
No, you just put minus. Yep. Number 5. Sure. So with number 5, we would start off the same way. Y equals, my slope is 1/4 x. Then you have an option. Because the y-intercept is 0, you can put plus 0, or you can leave it off. Either of those would be fine. Okay. Any others in that section? Okay. Go on to the next page. The rest of that is sort of stuff from other lessons. I just wanted to get that piece on there. Not only will some equations be given in slope-intercept form, some will also be given in standard form. You don't need to memorize this, but you do need to know what it looks like. AX plus BY equals C will be in that format. If we get an equation that's in that format, we need to rearrange it so that it's back in slope-intercept form or convert it back. So think back to when we were doing our little equations and we were solving for things. Same thing here. So if I was solving this equation for y, trying to get y by itself, what would we do there? Angela? You don't want to take your guess? Can subtract. You can do that. But because you moved y to the other side, you created an extra step, which is fine. But now we have to move 3 back and still get rid of the negative 1. So again, all of that is fine. I'm going to show you the other way as well. So I would need to move 3 over. And then get y completely by itself by dividing. But you're going to have to do that to every single thing. That way everything simplifies. Do we get negative 2x plus 3 equals y? Or if we rearrange that, y equals negative 2x plus 3. Anyone know the other way we could have done this?
Minus 2x.
Subtract 2x on the other side. So here, I put it exactly as it was being subtracted, 3 minus 2x, but this is not in our slope-intercept form. I'd have to switch the order of these two, which we can do as long as we keep the signs the same. So y equals negative 2x plus 3 would be your answer regardless. Questions about that one before we move on? Yes. Did you do the E hall pass?
I can't look.
We're going to do number 2. Anyone know the next step or the first step for that one?
Minus 4.
Yes. In this case, instead of waiting to switch it, I'm going to go ahead and switch the order now, so I don't have to worry about doing that later. So I'm going to put minus 4x and then minus 30. What would we do after that? Yes, not by y, just 5. Divide everything by 5. Again, divide them separately. because things may simplify. We have y equals, if you get fractions or decimals here, leave it as a fraction. And then the last one can be fraction, decimal, doesn't matter. Usually it's a whole. Did you get it? Okay. Put that in your calculator. If you refresh it, it should be happening. Right. So instead of putting it as a decimal, -0.8, we want it in a ratio, that fraction format. If it's simplified, then we could change it. Okay. Other questions on that one? Look at numbers 3 through 8. Let me know what questions we have on there that we want to see or go over. And 5, I heard. Any others? So we'll start with those two. 8. Yep. Alright, so starting with 4, we may not get through all of these, but I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. For number 4, same process, move x over by subtracting. So then we have negative y equals, and then I'm again going to switch the order of those. But then I still have to get y by itself. If I were to write my slope from this point, it would not be correct because it's not going to be a -1 because my signs are going to change when I divide by this -1. So now looking at this, I could say my slope is what? 1. Right. For number 5, same thing. Get rid of the x term by moving it over. And you could do this one a couple different ways. So if I moved x over, I would still need to divide out the negative in front of y. So I could say my slope is 4. But I could have also moved y over. By adding y to both sides. And if I do that, this is already in slope-intercept form, it's just backwards. So if I rewrite it, it would give me the same thing. So be on the lookout for which may be easier, moving x or moving y. And then 8 really fast. Move x over. And then I'm going to switch the order, so it's -x minus 15. Then divide everything by 5. If I asked you what is the slope of that, what would you tell me? -1/5. Not -5, but you were close. Because this can also be rewritten as y equals -1/5 x minus 3. Those are the same thing, just written